Hi, I'm James Lamont, co-chair for the Vidine Center for Rural Economic Development at the University of Minnesota Crookston. Welcome to our supply chain series. This series is geared toward helping you understand why it's difficult to obtain certain products in the United States. In part 1 through 3, we discussed the National Food Train and Distribution Network and how impacts are occurring at the logistics, supply chain, and transportation levels, which subsequently impact your purchases. In part 4, we will discuss various supply chain issues associated with the meat production capacity in the United States. For perspective, understand that 80% of the meat produced in this country, primarily beef, is produced and processed by 4 major players. As a result, when bottlenecks started to occur within facilities such as the Smithfield site in Sioux Falls or various Tyson sites throughout the upper Midwest, consumers downstream and ranchers upstream of the supply chain were immediately impacted. When facilities temporarily closed, the pushback occurred and bottlenecks at at the producing sites, for example, the ranches and farms, were effectively the epicenter for the problem. So as the outbreak occurred at the sites where processing was happening, people that were farming unfortunately had, for example, hogs that exceeded capacity and therefore had to cull millions of animals. Within processing facilities, there are typically weight limits. And as a result of the bottleneck that ensued, many weight limits were exceeded at farms and ranches. And because local butchering operations were also filled to capacity, many animals were killed. This led to food supply chain shortages in grocery stores, major price increases, distribution issues, as well as warehousing challenges. All of these issues combined led to basically one of the worst supply chain shortages in meat history since the Second World War. Facilities have since reopened because the President of the United States invoked what is called the Defense Production Act. This piece of legislation typically is invoked when there are certain supplies for wartime, metals, vehicles, etc., that need to be produced. During the COVID-19 outbreak, we've observed it primarily with medical supplies, for example, 3M and masks, and then domestic production and utilization. And now we're starting to see it at various meat processing facilities throughout the United States. So it's going to take several months for these issues to work themselves through the supply chain. I would also anticipate, as there are second and third waves of COVID-19, we may experience similar outbreak scenarios within facilities. And as a result, there may be various points throughout the next year or two where chicken, beef, and pork experience similar challenges. This year alone, cattle farmers are anticipated to lose about $13 billion. Within the hog industry, we're looking at about $5 billion in losses. And as I mentioned earlier, facilities are open, but these supply chain constraints will take a while to resolve themselves. In our next discussion for part 6 of this series, or part 5 of this series, we will discuss eggs. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you learned something.